Hi everyone. In this short little video, we'll be looking at how you can select the right tracks. Tracks, you will see, are important because they decide which questions you see in the assessment. So it's important to choose the right ones so that you see the questions that are most relevant to your context. As I mentioned, the tracks that you choose determine the questions that you see in the assessment. What that means in practice is that, luckily, a small service firm will have less focus on an environmental impact area, for example, than a large manufacturing firm, because this service firm has different and other ways to make their biggest impact to a company in their industry. But for a large manufacturer, it is more important to also look at the footprint of their products, for example. What that looks like in practice, I tried to visualize that here. You'll see a small service-based firms on the left called Lean Lawyers, which is obviously a law firm. And on the right side, we will see Huck, which is a Dutch manufacturer of canned foods and other foodstuffs. You will see that indeed Lean Lawyers has about 50 questions about the environmental impact that they have, but Huck, as a large manufacturer, has more than 80 questions on this topic. So this is just to illustrate how the tracks that you choose influence the questions you need to answer. Which tracks are we talking about then? We will always refer to three tracks. Essentially, it's about the market that you operate in, market being the region, essentially, the sector that you operate in, so are you a law firm or are you a food manufacturer, and then the size, so your FTE size to be specific. And we'll dive a little bit in more detail into each of these three. Starting with the market. So the market, as I mentioned, is essentially the location where you are operating, more specifically the country of incorporation of your company. There are three options here, and for most Benelux-based companies, it is relatively straightforward because you're all in the Benelux. You will most likely all be in the middle category here, so in the developed global market track. On the left-hand side, you will see that there is a separate track for the USA, so for American companies. On the other hand, you will also see that there is a separate track for emerging markets. You will see which exactly those are, but Latin America, Eastern Europe, and some countries in Africa and Asia and the Middle East. But as I mentioned, in the Benelux, you will be incorporated, then you will most likely be on the developed global track, together with other companies from Western Europe, Canada, Australia, and some Asian countries as well. So this is relatively straightforward, right? More often than not, you're on the developed global track. Where it gets a little bit more tricky is the size. So let me drag this out of the way. The size is based on your FTE calculation. So it is determined by a little bit of a calculation on your workforce, basically. Of course, full-time employees count towards this calculation. Part-time workers also do. They count for half a full-time worker, actually. Temporary workers who are recurring, so who, for example, agricultural firms use a lot of recurring seasonal work for harvesting, etc. So they will also need to take into account those people that are on the payroll maybe less than 6 months a year, but recurringly every year. Also freelancers who work for the company the majority of their time, and majority of their time in this sense is defined as more than 6 months a year, and more than 20 hours a week. Those people should be considered workers of yours as well. Also included is our working owners who receive a salary. So not included are owners who are only remunerated by profit sharing. So that's kind of the cutoff point. If you are a working owner with other employees on payroll and you also receive a salary, then you should also be included on the FTE calculation. Not included interns and sporadic freelancers. And that will land you in one of the buckets at the bottom of the slide here. So you will see that there's a special track for zero worker companies, companies with only working owners, for example, or without any employees, and ranging all the way up to 1,000 plus. You will be able to visit this useful link. You'll get the slides linked to this video as well, so that you can use a bit of a resource as you calculate your own FTE size properly. And then the last track driver, as we call them, is the sector. Sector is really related to the type of business that you are, in which industry you are active. You will see that it starts by dividing the 5 options into 2 buckets. There are product-based companies in B-Lab's universe and service-based companies. I don't think that's too much of a stretch, and it makes sense, right? Product-based companies are all companies that they get more than 10% of their revenue from the sale of products. So even if you feel like you are more of a service-based companies, but you have call it a side hustle or a revenue stream, a small revenue stream, but it's more than 10% of your revenue, B-Lab considers you a product company. So you should be thinking about the 3 options on the left here. If you have less than 10% of your revenue from sales of products, you are a service-based company. So let's start by the sectors that relate to product-based companies. First of all, there is a special track for agricultural firms. So this is a track for companies that either grow their own crops, companies that grow crops, or that source more than 50% of their input materials directly from growers. So this is a good understanding to have if you are involved in agricultural products, whether or not you grow them yourself, or source them directly from the growers themselves. This is to recognize that agricultural firms have a very unique way of impacting the environment around them, the land that they operate on, etc. So they get a separate track to deal with those specificities of agricultural context. The second product-based track is the manufacturing track. Manufacturing in B-Lab's terms is defined as companies that have in-house manufacturing in company facilities with company payrolled employees. And this can sometimes be a little bit tricky and confusing because there may be companies who have a lot to say about the ingredient mix of their product, for example, or the product formulation, but who do not do any of the manufacturing factory work themselves. These would instead be considered wholesale retailers. So this is a distinction for all product companies that are not agricultural. You should be looking at, am I manufacturing my products in-house with company payrolled employees in company facilities, yes or no? Yes, then you are a manufacturing company, and no, then you are essentially a wholesaler who resells ready-made products. Going on to the service-based companies, you will see that they're called service with minor environmental footprint and services with significant environmental footprints. And this relates to the extent to which you rely on physical operations to deliver your service. So looking at the service minor here is the designated track for companies that provide services with a low environmental footprint. In other words, who do not rely on a physical location or heavy equipment to deliver that service. Typical examples here, law firms, creative agencies, sustainability consultants. These are all services with a minor environmental footprint, which means they don't rely on heavy equipment or the provision of a product to deliver their service. On the other hand, services with a significant environmental footprint do rely on those either physical location or heavy equipment, heavy machinery, or the provision of a product to deliver their service. So examples in this category could be restaurants. They provide a service, but they rely on physical location and physical products to deliver that service. A hairdresser could be an example. Movie theaters, health clubs and gyms, they are all service-based companies, but they rely on the operation and the maintenance of a physical location to deliver that service. A cool little example here I also give as a bit of a thought experiment is Swapfiets, which is a Dutch B Corp, who basically their idea is biking as a service. So you don't pay for the ownership of the bike, but you pay for the usage of the bike. And for if anything breaks down, you can exchange it or get it repaired. And that's all included in your monthly fee. So what that sounds like maybe to a lot of companies as just another product company, right? They provide bicycles. But it's not really true in this case, because they gain their revenue for providing a service. They provide bikes as a service. As a customer, I'm not paying for the ownership of that bike. I'm paying for the usage of a bike, whether or not that's the bike I'm currently riding or the one that replaces my broken one. So Swapfiets is also on the service significant track. So on the right side here, on the service significant environmental footprint, because they provide a service, but they rely on significant physical operations to deliver that service. So that's a good little example to get you thinking about those service sectors. There are a couple of industries that I want to highlight and that need to pay extra attention when choosing their industry or industry category. Now, I will say, and it's also on the slide here on the left, industry and industry category, which you will also be able to select in the BIA, usually do not influence the questions that you see unless you are active in one of those special industries. Why is that? Because these industries, so the building and real estate industry, the financial services industry, and the educational industry, have such a unique way of impacting either the environment around them or their social stakeholders, that B-Lab has created a bit of a customized BIA for those companies. So if you're remotely related to either of these industries, please make sure to select the right industry and industry category as well, because it will provide you with a customized version of the assessment, which is more relevant and more applicable to the context of your company. Now, how do I change my track if after getting these pointers, I realize that I might be on the wrong track? you can still change that. That's the good news. You can go to the dashboard and you'll be able to click the update track button. It's as simple as that. I want to wish you good luck with with your next steps on filling out the BIA. And you know where to find us with any questions.